willingly give to us. And often we can wind up peeling back the layers on an onion. You know, we very much wind up discovering things about people. We want to know not only about them, but we want to know about the stories behind them. And just like anybody who peels a really good onion, every now and then you wind up weeping tears and having snot run down your face.
I didn't do that.
Every now and then you might even crack open a rotten egg, and you need a shower after that. But what we found out, my point there is that a lot of people give us pictures that are showing their best selves. And they hold back the truth. They hold back the good stuff. They lie. And the truth is, when you talk about Gil, as a baby, he was very ugly. And he had an ever-present scowl, which we've all learned to appreciate. But you might want to notice that he was already well-dressed, even at a young age. But he spent his early childhood trying to compensate for this awkward face. He took to athletics, therefore, and he found comfort behind a catcher's mask, which, of course, would not only hide his face, but it also had the ability to fit well with his emerging obsession to be in charge of every single thing and to have his hands on every ball in play. Now, of course, he had several hundred brothers, and to compete with them, he learned early to know how the best way to stand out, especially if you have an ugly face, is to excel at displays of bravado, peacocking. You're supposed to strut like you're too cool for school. He learned to ride his bike at a very early age, about 18 months. And afterwards, he joined a youth gang, industriously tried to make some extra dough by stealing mail. But he bungled the getaway. Now, after 4 weeks in traction and recovery, but even before his first haircut after his release, the young hoodlum Gil was released from the hospital. He tried again with that stubborn determination we've all learned to live with. But this time he tried it with a motorcycle. Even as a gifted athlete like Gil, he had to learn the hard way how no matter how ugly you are, there still remain some things you just should not do for attention. Now, after he went to the hospital this time and the corrective surgery on his face, Gil left the youth gang, and his ability to blend in and be, well, almost normal, it began to emerge. He received decent enough schooling through high school, and after graduation, he very deftly falsified his GPA, cheated on the college board exams, and got accepted into some jerkwater university, Georgetown. And there he joined the debate team. And it was here that he began honing his ability to shout down dissenting opinion and stifle debate. He focused quickly in on the study of politics, where he displayed passion mixed with poor judgment. He's still enamored with athletics. He founded an intramural baseball league to foster political debate between the parties on the field. They're still tallying some of the scorecards from a few of those games. He had such an obvious passion for politics and adventure, it wasn't long before a fellow college student from Latin America with seedy connections admired Gil's natural-born and growing ability to possibly be a dictator. Gil told me how one night out with a new friend at a strip club, and I quote directly here, "So this Latino puke introduced me to somebody visiting from Fidel Castro's staff and now communist Cuba." And like a good Georgetown political science undergrad of the 1960s, Gil was desperately curious to learn about communism. And it was just after the Cuban Missile Crisis that Gil wound up taking a month-long sabbatical to Cuba. Not to be dissuaded by any embargo, Gil swam across to Havana. He set a world record that later the Johnson administration got squashed. And once out there on shore there, Gil took his first taste of covert military operations. He assisted Castro's forces in gaining skill with confiscated U.S. military equipment from the Bay of Pigs, helping them appreciate old surplus Jeep capabilities in jungle conditions like those he grew up in the north. Despite his obvious skill with the Willis Jeep, Gil did not really come to the attention of Fidel himself until after his cliff diving demonstration. But once they were introduced, the Cuban dictator took a liking to Gil. And he properly introduced him to a good cigar. After they smoked some pot and listened to some jazz records, Gil offered a suggestion as to another cash crop the general should consider investing in. And in gratitude, Fidel smuggled Gil back to the States. And now, Gil, with a genuine taste for sneaking about in foreign countries and with his falsified transcripts from Georgetown to entice them, he was recruited by the U.S. Air Force, where, folks, you can't make this stuff up any better than this. Like any garden variety hoodlum mail thief, he was tested and found worthy of top secret military intelligence work. But of course, at the Air Force, they were afraid that other Allied soldiers would likely frag him. They found it best to teach him to be fluent in the Chinese language, and thereafter to be cramped in the fuselage of an airborne listening aircraft. His mission was to gather, translate, and interpret Chinese transmissions, and to stay away from any Marines or Army guys who might shoot him in the back. He was dutiful and successful in his time of military service, but he did have one opportunity to pop off to Japan to pawn some pilfered military listening equipment to Sony. And this helped start his civilian career at the end of his duty tours. Now no longer a student, and fresh out of the Air Force, Gil decided there must be some way to stay on the government tip. And he found it next working for the Auditor General's Office of Pennsylvania, where he had much success. But he also had access to much more valuable mail to steal. And like most effective career criminals suspected of being Democrats, as soon as he had enough tax funds stashed away, Gil came to Florida to become a real estate investor, and he stopped shaving for a while. And he joined the real criminals of Florida, real estate developers. But lacking in ability to falsify results to a boss, when he himself was the actual boss and was self-employed, he had to return to working for others pretty quickly. Thus, next came Gil's stints of Chamber of Commerce work, first in Clearwater, until they ran him off. And then we finally get to him here in Plant City. Now, this period of his life marks a shift. Many of us here at the archives, we are painfully familiar with the dynamic of membership in committee-driven torture chambers like the Chambers of Commerce or history organizations. Now, generally, a dictatorial hoodlum bully like Gil can't succeed in one for long. But Gil, though, with his ability to shout down all committee drama and bully all dissenters, he hacked it out of the Plain City Chamber for 4 years or so. And he probably would have made a swan song career of it if he had not met me. Now, I met him sometime in 1997, 98, and it might have been okay for him to stay at the chamber despite that fact. But when it got out that he and I were friends, and even worse, were sailing captains, that was more than anybody could take. That fact put his being thrown off the Plant City Chamber bus into action. After 4 years of excellent work there with success on every possible front, it was a natural thing, therefore, for them to fire him. And I knew it had to be the storm cloud surrounding his being a friend of mine. That must be what was whipping up this issue. Great. Now I have guilt. I tried to shake his friendship off for his own good. I recklessly took the two of us out on our sailboat and nearly killed him by demasting it offshore. And then I wrote a nice article blaming it all on him, and I got it published in a nationwide magazine. He still stayed. Next, I gave him a chance to work for me at farming here in Plant City. Now, if there's any farmers in the room, you can tell us all exactly what I know, that just how much fun that is to be a farmer in Hillsborough County. Surely now he would quit. But no. He gutted it out and he built a great tree farm. Like many before me, I struggled with how to get rid of this guy. How could I spare him further local suffering for being my friend? And the only thing I could think of to run him off, and for him to save himself after all of that, would be to put him in charge of the Plant City Photo Archives. Now, at that time, the Plant City Photo Archives was a brand new thing. They did not know what it owned, or how to save it, or what to do with it, or anything. It was basically a rudderless boat out in deep water with no provisions, propulsion, or intended destination. No life raft, no life jackets. Sounds like heaven, doesn't it? Surely this would do it, and get this albatross off of my back. Nothing I tried could shake this man off. He's like a fungus. I suppose one of his few redeeming qualities is loyalty in the face of better judgment or reason. But now that his mind is going, and before he really embarrasses himself or us any further, we thought we should retire him and have a party. Now, those of you who know him well, you know all too well, perhaps, what parts of what I just said I made up, and what parts of it are actually true.
All true.
It's all true, says Rich. Some of you even have morsels of knowledge out there that I omitted. But in the end, we all of us here owe this man a debt. Whether or not we admit it to him. I wish you wouldn't. His head's fat enough as it is. But he's one of those people who does not do what he does for accolade. He doesn't do these things. This bullying of other people, this yelling other people's opinions down, the squashing of dissent, all of these things he does, he's never doing it to seek accolade. No, he's really irritating that way. And I'm sure in the end we all appreciate it. But what you have done, and what you will probably continue doing, even though we've retired your ass, is for the purest of all of those reasons. Something any man in the room and any person in the room should aspire to. You do it because you like to work and because it's good. Thank you. And if you would, ladies and gentlemen, raise a glass to my friend, Mr. Gilgott. Here's to the next 20 years of what you're going to do with us.